It will also be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. So all our viewers on the New Democratic Party's Facebook page as well as YouTube, we welcome you to another edition of the New Times program. Joining us now, we have the Member of Parliament for East Kingstown, the New Democratic Party's elected member, the Honorable Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble, to give his budget response and his presentation here in the New Times program. So without any further ado, it's over to you.
Thank you, Colin. And good morning to all listeners and viewers near and far. And particularly a special good morning to the lovely constituents of the constituency of East Kingstown. I appreciate the opportunity today to be able to make my presentation in relation to the budget presented by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development earlier this year, a few weeks ago. We all know what happened during the sitting of the House on the 10th of January, which essentially curtailed or prevented really any substantive debate on the budget. So it is my opportunity, responsibility, and privilege today to address you on Budget 2024. And I want to start by quoting from the budget address by the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Development from page 2 of his budget address, where he says, and I quote, "The budget being presented today is one of a country on the right track. Budget 2024 sticks to the plan of accelerating our people-centered developmental momentum and building ambitiously on the gains of recent years." Page 3, continuing, "In many ways, being taken for granted is the sincerest compliment for the progress achieved under this government. It means that we have become a familiar and trustworthy presence in the lives of Vincentians, and that our tremendous progress has made the revolutionary seem routine. We accept that compliment with humility, even while insisting that we celebrate, however fleetingly, the many developmental triumphs that we have achieved in the past year," unquote. So those are the words of the Honorable Minister of Finance. The past year, 2023, experienced a budget of $1.3 billion, but it really has left us wondering, how was it spent and what did this $1.3 billion 2023 budget accomplish? What are these many developmental triumphs that the Minister of Finance refers to in his budget address that Budget 2023 achieved? For example, how many jobs did the $1.3 billion create? How much of the $1.3 billion was spent and on what? How did the $1.3 billion impact poverty, crime, the public debt, and other socio-economic indicators? How did we come from a $32 million current account deficit in 2023 to a $10 million surplus as outlined by the Honorable Minister of Finance? A budget is a plan for spending, and that plan should include your plans for getting the money that you plan to spend. So prior to presenting your plan, or prior to presenting another plan, in other words, prior to presenting the 2024 budget, one would expect an account of how the previous plan was implemented, how the $1.3 million from 2023 was spent or executed. And this was not done in the case of our government. We all know what happened. They all refused to debate and present and give an account of what happened in 2023. But yet, they're coming now and asking us for $1.6 billion for 2024. So when the Minister of Finance refers to building ambitiously on the gains of recent years, he needs to account and report on these gains. Accountability is sorely lacking and has become the Achilles heel of this administration. How could you bold-facedly come here year after year asking for more of the people's money, but refuse quite contemptuously to tell the people how you spent the money that they gave you to spend in the previous year? Fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility is and should be the hallmark of any responsible government. According to the 2022 report of the Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and let me just tell you real quickly what this is. The Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism is a group of persons, a group of very competent professionals established and put in place by this current administration. It was established, I think, in 2021-22, to basically oversee and monitor and analyze the behavior of this government as they spend our money. Fiscal behavior, fiscal policy, fiscal activities essentially include spending money, government expenditure relative to tax revenue and other revenues that you're able to raise in order to spend what you say you're going to spend or what you spent. And the fiscal responsibility mechanism, this consists of very reputable and competent and well-respected Vincentians. Dr. Justin Robinson, I believe, from the University of the West Indies, is a part of the FRM, the Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism. So also is Dr. Linton Lewis, Shafia London, Brian Glasgow, and former Director of Finance and Planning, Mr. Maurice Edwards. So these are very reputable and knowledgeable and experienced people. And they presented a report in 2022 called, and I have it right here, the Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On page 9 of the Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism, it says that, and it highlights the general principles of responsible fiscal management. In other words, if you as a government are being responsible in how you spend the people's money, then these are some of the things, or these are some of the principles that you must emphasize and that you must adhere to. One, accountability. And the report says, and I quote, accountability, which means the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, and all other ministers are accountable to the House of Assembly and the public for the manner in which the government discharges its responsibilities with respect to the management of the economy and fiscal policies. They didn't even come to debate their own budget. So when we talk about lack of accountability, and contemptuously I might add, this government takes the cake. Continuing to quote from the Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism report for 2022, sustainability, which means the long-term fiscal and debt sustainability objectives, shall underpin the framing of the medium-term economic and fiscal report and the annual budget, including the management of fiscal risk. So in other words, this government ought to make sure that every year when they come to present a budget, it should be done in the context of being very, very cognizant and aware of the impact of this budget on the finances of this country and on the debt. And I want to finally quote from the report, which talks about, on page 9, which talks about transparency. Transparency, which means timely disclosure and wide publication of information on macroeconomic and fiscal policy matters to permit further public scrutiny and parliamentary oversight. So this government should, on a very regular basis, be presenting information not only to the parliament of this country, but to the people of this country, outlining what they have been doing, how they have spent the money, the $1.3 billion from 2023. How have you spent this money? Ministry by ministry, sector by sector, community by community, road by road, clinic by clinic. Come and tell the people of this country how you are spending their hard-earned money so that they can be confident enough to give you more money to spend. Now you're asking for 1.6 billion in 2024. It is incumbent, therefore, for every minister, including the Prime Minister, to give account for the money and resources allocated to their ministries and the government. Come and tell us how you spent that $1.3 billion allocated to you by this honorable parliament. The importance of the fiscal situation of the government cannot be overstated. For example, again, the government projected a budget deficit, a current account deficit of $32 million in 2023. And what that simply means is that they were saying to you, they would fall short by $32 million for the current revenue, for monies that you're going to need to spend on things like wages and salaries, and operation of government departments and so on, that the revenue, the tax revenue to do that would be $32 million less than what was required to be spent. But lo and behold, all of a sudden we heard the Honorable Minister of Finance coming and telling us that now they have a $10 million surplus instead of a $32 million current account deficit for 2023. How did that happen? You can't just come and give us these arbitrary types of information without explaining and disclosing. Budget 2024 projects a current account deficit of $25 million. So in other words, for 2024, we are going to be $25 million short of what is necessary. And how is this going to be addressed? What is the government's primary balance? In other words, the difference between government's revenue, what it is earning from taxes and tax collection, and what it is spending, not including debt payments. To put things differently, your primary balance would be the difference between your monthly salary and your monthly expenses, to try to help you to understand better, not including the money you spend for repaying your debt. And the primary balance is of extreme significance. When revenue is more than non-interest expenditure, we can refer to that as a primary surplus. And all of this is important because I'm setting the tone and establishing the context for what will follow in a little while. For 2024, the government is projecting a primary balance deficit of $25 million. So in other words, they will be spending $25 million more on current activities, paying salaries, etc., than it would generate from tax revenue. How are they going to do it? Only they know. I want to just, so emphasizing the report from the fiscal responsibility mechanism is extremely important because this report contains an analysis of the behavior of our government with regards to spending our money. And the situation is very bad. It's very, very bad. The fiscal stance and reduction of the fiscal space by this administration over the years have in large measure brought us to this undesirable and unsustainable economic malaise. But what the fiscal responsibility mechanism has said is that notwithstanding all of this, and I quote from the report, severe austerity measures are not appropriate for St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this stage in the economic cycle. So for them to even mention and point out that we cannot afford to undertake severe austerity measures tells you that we need to do something, and we need to do something very, very fast to address and arrest this situation. Instead, the report says sustained restraint in expenditure growth offers the most suitable balance between managing the economic and financial challenges. So they're saying that the government will have to severely cut back on its spending if we are to improve our situation. Additionally, it should be acknowledged, and this is the report, I'm continuing to quote from the report, it should be acknowledged that any reforms proposed would represent large structural and cultural change, since meaningful levels of and duration of expenditure growth restraint is unprecedented. So in other words, they're saying government has to cut back on its spending, but it's going to be a hell of a task because this government has not been known for being restraining or being disciplined in its spending. Now, since the government would have to cut back on its spending, I don't need to tell you, but I will, of the consequences and the impact of that happening. Just imagine the impact that that would have on providing social services for this country, providing security for this country, and spending on all the other important matters which we as Vincentians enjoy and deserve. The report for the fiscal responsibility mechanism is telling you that the government would have to cut back on its expenditure. And I will elaborate further as I proceed with my presentation. So the fiscal activities and management of the government have impacted and will continue to significantly impact our national debt. Our national debt, how much money do we owe? Other governments, international financial institutions, local businesses, how much money do we as a government owe and have to pay back? It is important. I mean, the reality is that no modern day government can really exist and operate efficiently without incurring debt. But it must be done prudently, and it must be done to make sure that it's not to the suffering and to the disadvantage of the people whom these incurred debts are designed to take care of. So our national debt has increased significantly from 2001 when this government came to office. The public debt in 2000, when the New Democratic Party left office, was about 738 million EC dollars. In 2023, the public debt is $2.4 billion, more than 3 times what the Unity Labour Party met when they came into office in 2001. Can you imagine that? When they came into office, the debt was $738 million. Now it's $2.4 billion. And what do we have to show for it? I am not saying that all of the debt that the Unity Labour Party administration incurred was useless. I will never say that. The Argyle International Airport, just to name one. But the question is, how has this $2.4 billion of debt incurred by the Unity Labour Party administration, this government, as it stands at September 2023, how has this improved the quality of life of Vincentians? That is the question that the Honorable Minister of Finance needs to come and answer. Complicated realities with regards to managing our debt are: 1, lack of primary balance surpluses. In other words, we're operating at a primary balance deficit. We're spending more than we're earning from tax revenue and so on. So that has impeded our ability to sustain, to restrain and to pay and to repay our debt. And 2, low economic activity and growth. If our economic activity and economic growth was better, then we would be in a much better position to service our debt and to make sure that this debt is sustainable. Let's talk about debt to GDP ratio. That is something that economists talk about all the time. And it is an important indicator and an important part of the analysis when we're talking about debt and how it impacts our economy and the lives of people of this country. Our debt to GDP ratio, what it simply means is that every dollar that this country earns, that's our GDP, gross domestic product, the value of all goods and services produced in a year in a particular jurisdiction, in this case, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. For every dollar that this economy generates, how much of that dollar do we owe in debt? That is called your debt to GDP ratio. In 2000, when the Unity Labour Party when the New Democratic Party demitted office, the debt to GDP ratio was 54.2%, which means that when the NDP administration left office, every dollar that this country made, we only owed 54 cents in debt. Today, in 2023, our debt to GDP ratio is 85%, which means for every dollar that this country generates, this economy generates, we owe 85 cents in debt. This is mind-boggling, especially when you consider the socio-economic conditions of this country that our people have to face. The report again, and I will keep referring to the financial responsibility mechanism report quite a bit, at least in the early part of my presentation, because it is very, very important. I can't stress that enough. The financial report mechanism of 2022 indicates that a long-term debt rule of reducing public debt from 85% public debt to GDP from 85 to 60% by 2035 is what we should aim for. Seriously? Do we think, based on the plans or lack thereof of this current government, that we would be able to reduce our debt to GDP ratio from 85% to 60% by 2035? Well, I am not alone in my doubt of achieving such an objective, because the FRM reports also says this is ambitious and very unlikely, since this government has historically increased debt to GDP ratio from 54% in 2000 when they came to office. The government's record of unsustainable borrowing and very low economic growth does not provide much hope nor confidence that this target would be reached. Given the anticipated level of expenditure and the current economic environment, the long-term debt fiscal rule is very ambitious and will be a challenging milestone to achieve within the designated time frame. While this fiscal challenge may be daunting, it nonetheless encourages innovation and presents a great opportunity to implement systematic reforms to increase revenue and or constrain expenditure requirements to acceptable levels. So, we see here that we are in a dire strait. The International Monetary Fund, not too long ago, said that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in their 2022 Article 4 consultation of debt analysis, October 2028, 2022, says that St. Vincent and the Grenadines' public debt is sustainable, but remains at high risk of distress for both external and overall public debt, broadly unchanged from the 2021 debt sustainable assessment. In other words, they're saying that because of our high debt, St. Vincent and the Grenadines remain at high risk of distress, debt distress. What does debt distress mean? Debt distress refers to a situation where a country is experiencing or about to experience a distress event, such as being unable to meet the repayment due to its creditors. It is a state of financial strain that can lead to default, loss of market access, higher borrowing costs, and harm to economic growth and development. And debt distress can have very many consequences. And I'm spending a little bit of time talking about this because the international just said that given our current debt situation, we are at a high risk of debt distress. We may not be able to pay back the people who we owe. And if that is the case, here are some of the consequences that we as Vincentians may very well face. One, rising cost of living. As a country's debt burden increases, it may lead to higher taxes, reduced public services, and a decline in the standard of living for citizens. Two, economic instability leading to job losses, reduced investment, and a decline in economic growth. 3, reduced access to public services. In some cases, countries facing debt distress may need to cut back on public services to allocate resources toward debt repayment, which can negatively impact citizens' quality of life. And 4, increased poverty, as resources are diverted from social programs and development projects to pay back our debt servicing. So we see here that our current debt situation is really, really serious, and that might very well be an understatement. So, Budget 2024 is presented in the backdrop of the following: high and persistent fiscal deficits. These are our realities. These are our realities as our Minister of Finance comes and brags about all these triumphs, developmental triumphs, we call them, that Budget 2024 will continue to present and to experience. So Budget 2024 is presented in the backdrop of 1, high and persistent fiscal deficits. 2, high and unsustainable public debt to the point of us being at risk of debt distress. 3, low economic growth. 4, high debt to GDP ratios. 5, high unemployment rates. 6, high and increasing rates of poverty. 7, a struggling private sector. 8, no debt reduction plan. 9, no poverty assessment exercise since 2008. 10, no labor market assessment to better identify the nature of unemployment in this country. 11, a woefully delayed population and housing census. 12, no export strategy. 13, a national public debt of $2.4 billion, which increased by 12.5% from last year. 15, a debt to GDP ratio of 85%. 16, the largest trade deficit in the Eastern Caribbean. And let me just tell you what I mean by that. St. Vincent and the Grenadines have a trade deficit of around 911,997,576 almost $1 billion our trade deficit is. What that means is that, and let me break it down further. In 2021, which is the latest, the most recent data that I was able to extract. In 2021, St. Vincent and the Grenadines exported in merchandise trade, exported $93.7 million worth of exports. And we imported $1.005 billion worth of imports. Can you imagine that? The largest number of people, and here's another backdrop of the 2024 budget address. I think it's number 17 now, 16. The largest number of people leaving St. Vincent and the Grenadines seeking a better life in other countries, including neighboring Caribbean countries. Approximately 400 persons, mostly young people, per year. These are our realities. And the Honorable Minister of Finance has neglected, or maybe he was unable to tell us, to show us the connection between the $1.6 billion 2024 budget and being able to address some of these aforementioned realities called our economic malaise. I want to now, let me now the Minister of Finance's budget speech to examine whether Budget 2024 even puts a dent on any of the aforementioned. And I want to start with agriculture, forestry, and fisheries. Of the $1.6 billion budget, 24, only a measly $41.8 million, or 2.5%, has been allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture. Agriculture contributes about 8% to our GDP. 8%. This is a sector where the Minister of Finance says, and I want to quote from his budget address, page 7, because sometimes we are not accurate and that we are telling lies and what have you. But anyway, page 7 of the Honorable Minister of Finance's budget address with regards to agriculture, he says, and I quote, agriculture and the farmers and fishers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines remain at the heart of our national development. Really? And you only give them you only give the ministry 2.5% of the budget, the total budget. He goes on to say, unlike some of our neighbors, this government will not abandon agriculture in a reckless pursuit of fast but fleeting money, nor will we sideline the agricultural sector to place all our development eggs in a single fragile basket. Well, I'll let you be the judge. I will let you be the judge of that. The minister also mentioned in his speech on page 9, and I quote, further, repeated drought have hamstrung production. So he's telling us that a big part of the reason why agricultural production was very low was drought. But this is nothing new. This is part of our reality. We have a rainy season and a dry season, and for the past however many years we have been experiencing drought, and the government has done absolutely nothing to mitigate. Give you a case in point. Look at the large number of water tanks that we have sitting down at Otley Hall and other locations, not being used. Why not give the farmers some of these water tanks so that they can harvest water in the rainy season to help them mitigate against these unavoidable drought situations? He goes on to say, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I have to laugh, I'm sorry. St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains the breadbasket of the Eastern and Southern Caribbean. We continue to lead the OECS in the export of food and live animals and supply more to more people than any other island in the region. Where is this data really? St. Vincent and the Grenadines remains the breadbasket of the Eastern Caribbean. Are you kidding me? This is for a country where our food import bill is about $500 million, about 20% of our GDP we spend on bringing food into this country. And that contributes significantly to St. Vincent and the Grenadines having the largest trade deficit of almost $1 billion in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Let him refute that. I want to continue perusing his budget, the Honorable Minister of Finance, and talk about tourism. Just briefly, in the interest of time. Tourism. The Minister of Tourism has been allocated about $61 million of our total budget. $61 million, about maybe close to 5%. And tourism is supposed to be the flagship of our development. Tourism and agriculture are supposed to be the driving forces behind our development. They are the nucleus of our productive sectors. And you are allocating such measly sums. You know, they come and brag and talk about expanding room stock and building more hotels and all of that. And of course, without a shadow of a doubt, we welcome that. But development does not happen in a vacuum. So when you bring these, when we increase our room stock and we build these hotels, tell us, how do you plan to occupy these hotels? We know Sandals has its own model. Sandals has its own marketing strategy, and it has proven time and time again to be successful. But how are we going to attract people to this country so that we can fill these hotel rooms? Prior to all of these large individuals coming here, our occupancy rate of our small indigenous, mostly small indigenous hotels here in St. Vincent was about 40%. In other words, on any given day, you could go to any local hotel and only 4 out of 10 rooms were occupied. And this was on an ongoing basis. So we need to make sure that we develop not only a proper and effective and appropriate tourism plan, which should have been done, to ensure that we get value for money with the uptake in the tourism stock, in the room stock. That I will continue in further discussions on another occasion. In the interest of time, I want to now look at very briefly port modernization, the second largest capital project in our country. And this is what the Minister of Finance says on page 18 of his budget address. He says, our port, when completed, will be among the most in the Caribbean. It will be climate resilient, expandable, and sustainable. By consolidating port operations in one modern facility, instead of juggling 2 aging ones, we will be more efficient and better suited to facilitate marine trade for our private sector. Lovely. My question is, and of course, they tried to give you some very misleading information to say that, oh, the New Democratic Party doesn't support the port and all that. Nonsense. We have never opposed the construction of the new port. Of course, we ask questions. Of course, we ask analysis of the rationale behind constructing this new port, which they have never really given. But nonetheless, it's being constructed, it will be completed, and when the New Democratic Party takes government, we will make sure that the new port being constructed in Kingston will contribute significantly to the social and economic development of this country. This current government has not been able to indicate to us how this is going to happen. $600 million project, almost more than $500 million, significantly impacting our national debt, and you cannot tell us how this is going to develop our country? Shame. Shame, shame, shame. I want to go on now to the private sector. Well, sorry, before I go to the private sector, geothermal energy, which is referenced on page 26 of the budget speech by the Honorable Minister of Finance. And on page 26, he talks about, despite multiple, and I quote from his budget address here, despite multiple assertions by the opposition, as recently as 2 weeks ago, that our national geothermal project is dead, we continue to assure the public that the reports of its death are greatly exaggerated. The government is currently in discussion, etc., etc. So, if my memory serves me right, attempts were made to implement or to execute a geothermal project some years ago. The project was abruptly discontinued. And I remember very well when the equipment came for the project, they had big motorcade through town all the way up to the volcano, showing off the equipment that they're gonna be using to establish this geothermal project, which supposedly was gonna be one of the pillars of renewable energy in this country. And lo and behold, the project closed down very secretively. The equipment was unceremoniously removed from the project site and taken to wherever, only God knows. And we are yet to know, the Vincentian people are yet to know how much money was spent on this first attempt at geothermal project out at La Soufrière. How much money did this government take from our people to spend on a failed geothermal project? And now you're coming and telling us that you're going to make another attempt? This is what I'm talking about, lack of accountability. We don't know how much money you spent on the first geothermal project that you attempted to implement, but now you're coming and telling us that you want more money to do a second one or to make a second attempt. This is very contemptuous, and our people should treat it as such. Let's talk about the private sector, because the Honorable Minister of Finance references the private sector as well in his budget address for 2024. And on page 27, he talks about, and I quote here, the private sector is an indispensable partner in the development journey of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That's on page 27 of his address. The question I want to ask is, what has been the net business creation and retention since COVID? We have heard figures of as high as 600 businesses closing down since COVID. Well, give us some indication of how well our private sector is doing, since it is an indispensable partner in the development journey of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because I interact with a lot of business people in this country, and I'm quite sure that they will tell you that the Honorable Minister of Finance's interpretation of partner is significantly different from what partner really means. We have heard, for example, the Prime project or program, it seems to be a program now, it's going on indefinitely, and I don't have any problems with that. I've always commended the government for the Prime project, promoting youth micro enterprises. And it started in 2020, and I believe up until now, well over $12 million thus far has been spent. And I believe that this is a very important initiative in helping to bolster the private sector. But after 4 years of Prime, we are yet to get any kind of report, any kind of analysis, any kind of evaluation of how well this project has been doing. How many new businesses have been created through Prime? How many are still in operation? How has Prime impacted unemployment and poverty in this country? And how has the program impacted economic growth? These are fundamental questions that ought to be answered. You're talking about developmental triumphs. Tell us, give us the data so that we can feel confident that you're moving in the right direction. Of course you can't, because you're not moving in the right direction. Budget 2024 extends incentives and concessions. And we're still on the private sector, according to the Honorable Minister of Finance. Page 28, he says, Budget 2024 extends incentives and concessions. But to who? Concessions and incentives to who? To Reno? You brought in a company, this government brought a company into this country to mine stones. I'm not going to rehash all of the conditions and what have you, but what I will remind Vincentians about is the fact that Reno was brought into this country, given full concessions and exemptions from income tax, from customs duties, from VAT, you name it. And yet you're talking about difficulties in raising tax revenue. If you're going to extend these kinds of incentives to companies like Reno, then you must carefully and methodically think about the impact on our country. What has Reno mined since they came into St. Vincent? How many stones have they mined? And they're still enjoying full tax, duty, and VAT exemptions. And our poor small businesses in this country have to suffer and compete with people like Reno, with companies like Reno. And I'm not bashing foreign investment. I will never do that. Quite the contrary. We encourage foreign investment. Foreign investment is an important pillar in our economic development. But foreign investment must be devoid of unfairness, and it must be devoid of any impressions of corruption. The Fiscal Responsibility Mechanism report again talks about, and I refer to it, because this is what is going to have to happen. If we really want a vibrant and effective private sector, this is what the report says. The report says that a sizable private sector investment pipeline would be necessary to contribute to growth over the short term. That is what we need. In the interest of time, I'm going to have to skip over some of the other references in the budget, but I think well, let's quickly talk about youth, sports, and culture. And I want to just quickly make reference to the cultural hub that was talked about. This government is going to be constructing cultural hubs in Bellevue, Chomoka, and Petit Bodel. And I made representation, and it's a good idea. It's a good initiative. I agree. And I'm not just saying I agree. I believe that it is a good injection into the cultural development and recognition of our cultural artists and our cultural environment. But my question is, as the representative of East Kingston, how could you overlook a community like Sion Hill to be granted one of these cultural hubs? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't put them in Bellevue, Chomoka, or Petit Bodel, but Sion Hill could have gotten one and should have gotten one. Sion Hill is undoubtedly the cultural capital of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Without doubt, it's irrefutable. Come on, give Sion Hill and East Kingston that cultural hub. I want to move now to job creation and decent work, which the minister spoke, the Honorable Minister of Finance spoke about between pages 64 and 67 in the budget address. And yes, we know that job creation and people need work. People in this country need work. And there have been some initiatives in budget 2024. For example, the income tax threshold has been increased from $22,000 to $25,000. So anybody making $25,000 and less, they don't have to pay taxes. Public servants are getting a further, I think, 2% increase in salary, and so on and so on and so forth. And that is welcomed. It is welcomed because the low salaries and low wages that our workers, our citizens enjoy in this country leave a lot to be desired. But everything must also be done in context. Everything must be done in context, because you're giving public servants an increase in salary, you increase in the tax threshold, but you're coming back and taking it back. In the other hand, you, Honorable Minister of Finance, said that these salary measures would cost the government about $10 million. But you did not emphasize that after you increase motor vehicle registration, after you increase driver's license registration, after you increase registration for bus conductors, and on and on and on, electrical inspection, you're raising way more than the $10 million that you're going to forego. And to add insult to injury, I recall quite clearly, I don't even have to refer to my notes, I recall quite clearly the Honorable Minister of Finance said that the increase in motor vehicle registration would raise about $6 million, and that would help to fix the roads in this country. Are you serious? You are increasing motor vehicle registration to raise about $6 million to help fix roads in this country. I will let the people of this country be the judge of that particular initiative, and I am quite sure that they will not only judge you, but they will do what they have to do to make sure that you don't continue taking us down this road of persistent economic malaise. I want to now, as I come on the home stretch, make reference to, because clearly, what I have outlined, and 45 minutes really doesn't do me justice, but what I have outlined clearly shows a huge disconnect between the $1.6 billion budget that's being presented here for 2024 and any meaningful attempt to arrest our economic situation. Let me very quickly refer to, there's a book that I have here, The Making of the Comrade, The Political Journey of Ralph Gonsalves. And I want to refer to on pages 170 and 171, where this is a book written by Dr. Gonsalves, and I believe it was published somewhere around 2010, if my memory serves me right. On page 170 and 171, our Prime Minister talks about, and he recounts what he calls the mess we met, referring to when his ULP administration came into office in 2001, this is what he met from the New Democratic Party. Of course, a lot of it is questionable. Some of it is accurate. A lot of it is questionable. And there's a reason why I'm going to recount and refer to what Dr. Gonsalves mentioned in his book, The Making of the Comrade, as the mess that the New Democratic Party left his administration. And here are some of them. Unemployment amounting to some 40% of the labor force, and a poverty level affecting 37% of the population. Unemployment right now is over 40%, particularly of our young people, and our poverty level is certainly way over 37%. The worst poverty, so here's another of the mess that he said he met. The worst poverty in the Caribbean after Haiti. And I'll just read them through and I'll comment later. 3, declining economic growth, which had St. Vincent and the Grenadines at the bottom of the OECS table, and a widening income gap between the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the rest of the OECS. 4, non-collection of taxes from big companies and some highly placed professionals and other persons. A health system which was falling apart, and over $2 million owed to the suppliers for medicines and pharmaceuticals. 5, a rundown, inadequate and limited physical infrastructure, including roads, bridges, sea and river defenses, government buildings, schools, clinics, police stations, and other public facilities. 5, a dirty capital city, Kingston. 6, no national stadium. 7, no center for the performing arts. 8, poor governance, including a lack of popular democratic participation in the nation's governance. Rampant corruption and waste of public resources. Abuse and misuse of government vehicles, a lack of openness and transparency in government. No focused approach to poverty reduction, and sweetheart mortgages at the National Commercial Bank. Malaise in the public service, the teaching profession, and the police force. A massive takeoff in serious crimes and drug trafficking, especially in cocaine, and no sufficient response by government. A bad hand in the management and state of government finances. A massive unproductive public debt of over $600 million. Financial mismanagement in the central government and almost all of the state-owned enterprises. Little or no progress in the main productive sectors of the economy, and a substantial decline, well, in bananas and so on. And well, I'll leave it at that, just to give you an idea. So maybe Prime Minister Gonsalves had a premonition when he wrote this book, because all of these things that he claimed contributed to the mess that the New Democratic Party left when he came into office in 2001. They have all worsened. 23 years in government, and this so-called mess that you met, left by the New Democratic Party, the mess has worsened. The data is there, the evidence is there. I'm not playing politics here. So when the fiscal responsibility mechanism, in their recommendation in the report, and I'm going to wrap up give me about 5 more minutes. In their report, in their recommendations, on page 24, this is the recommendation of the fiscal responsibility mechanism in order for us, our government, our people, to really address and get back on some path which resembles meaningful social and economic development. On page 22, the report says, and I quote, and I want you to listen very carefully. This is what the report is saying. This is what they're telling our government that it needs to do in order for us to get back on any sort of economic decency, social and economic decency. Here's what the report says. Severe austerity measures are not appropriate for St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this stage in the economic cycle. Instead, sustained restraint in expenditure growth offers the most suitable balance between managing the economic and financial challenges. Addressing fiscal policy objectives without imposing austerity measures may require the government to do the following. This is what they're telling the government it would have to do in lieu of undertaking or implementing austerity measures. 1, operate within its budget and forward estimates allocations, which means no expenditure growth for 3 years. 2, limit expenditure growth over the projection period between 2022 and 2030 to no more than 3% per annum. Achieving this outcome will require a combination of significant structural reform and prudent budget management to reduce expenditure by around $200 million over 3 years compared with a business as usual approach. 3, build on the existing framework. 4, adopting a charter of budget discipline and improving the integrity of the budget process. 5, revising budget settings and making ministers more accountable for operating within budget. Let me repeat number 5, revising budget settings and making ministers more accountable for operating within budget. 6, manage the growth in public sector employee numbers and costs. You hear what they're saying? The government must manage the growth in public sector employee numbers and costs. 7, reorganizing agencies under a single enterprise mindset to reduce duplication and maximize outcomes. 8, improving the management information system. 9, increasing the use of technology to deliver government services more efficiently and effectively. 10, optimizing revenues, managing public investments in a commercial manner, and developing robust cost recovery policies with a focus on debt reduction. This is what they're telling us that this government has to do. The future doesn't look bright under this administration, not at all. But yet, the Minister of Finance comes and tells us on page 88 and 89 of his budget speech for 2024 that the government has held steadfast to a plan. That plan rests on the foundation of 7 pillars. On page 89, he says, we have a good plan. I'm quoting him. We have a good plan. We are sticking to the plan. The plan is working. Budget 2024 is the latest manifestation of our plan in action. It is our latest tool to reduce poverty. share prosperity, foster growth, and accelerate development. Can you believe the gall of this guy? I'm sorry, not of this guy, of this Honorable Minister of Finance? Because we are now into 2024. We are about to complete our social and national social and economic development plan, which this government failed to implement. No properly implemented national and social development plan. But yet they say now that they want $200,000 to start the new plan. The National Economic and Social Development Plan of 2013 to 2025, and this is what it says, has been elaborated around a specific set of strategic goals, objectives, and targets so as to facilitate and guide the optimal improvement of the quality of life for all Vincentians. That is what the Prime Minister said. And the reason why I'm going to conclude by making quick reference to some of the parts of this 2013 to 2025 development plan is to show you that the Honorable Minister of Finance does not know what he's talking about, or he's lying to the people of this country, or a combination of the two, when he says that they have a good plan, that they're sticking to the plan, that the plan is working. Because the 2013 to 2025 National Development Plan is anchored on the achievement of the following overarching goals. 1, high and sustained levels of economic growth. 2, reduce unemployment and poverty levels. 3, improve physical infrastructure and environmental sustainability. 4, high levels of human and social development. 5, a peaceful, safe, and secure nation. 6, a technologically advanced workforce. 7, a deep sense of national pride and cultural renaissance. 8, regional integration. 9, enhanced global solidarity. Some of the specific objectives of the plan include to maintain strong macroeconomic fundamentals, unemployment, growth, inflation, fiscal policy, international trade. To revitalize the agricultural and fisheries sector. To enhance the role of the private sector. To attain a strong and sustainable external trade. To reduce poverty. To create jobs and reduce the levels of unemployment. To facilitate social, cultural, and economic development at the community levels. To empower youth to meaningfully participate in and contribute to national development. To enhance participatory democracy, accountability, transparency, effectiveness, and efficiency in the provision of public goods and services. To develop and maintain a peaceful, safe, and secure environment. To upgrade the road network in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To reduce the dependence on imported fuel. These are the things that the National Social and Economic Development Plan of 2013 to 2025 was supposed to accomplish under this current government. And they have not accomplished any of them. So we have a government who's bad spending our money, running up a national debt that is frightening to the extent of us being at high risk of debt distress, giving you increases in salaries in one hand, but taking it back in taxes on the other hand, and on and on and on. And they refuse to come and defend the $1.6 billion and tell us how $1.6 billion is supposed to improve the lives of Vincentians in this country. I am very disappointed in this 2024 budget. And I think that the time has come. The 2024 budget is a demonstration by this government that they are tired and they are admitting that they are at the end of the line. They are at the end of the road. Unfortunately, Vincentians would have to endure 2024 under this budget. But what I will tell you, that there is hope. There is hope and there is change coming. And the New Democratic Party will, when we form government, present to you a budget or budgets which will ensure meaningful and effective improvement in the quality of lives for all Vincentians. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
All right, thank you very much. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the budget presentation by the New Democratic Party's elected representative for the constituency of East Kingstown, the Honorable Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble. You heard it live here on the New program. And of
Colin,
course, came live on social media, both Facebook and YouTube of the New Democratic Party's social media platforms. We're gonna
Colin, can you hear me?
Yes, Fitz, I'm hearing you.
Okay, Honorable Terence Oliver is waiting right here to make his presentation. Would you like him to come right away? Or do you...
Yes. Let him jump straight in one time.
Okay,
So,
and then after him, we will both remain if in case anybody wants to ask any questions or what have you.
yes, of course.
Okay, so just give me a minute. Let's change seats. Let me change seats with Terence.
All right. So now we're standing by now to be joined by the Honorable Terence Oliver. He's the New Democratic Party's elected representative for the constituency of the Southern Grenadines. He will be joining us now to give his budget response and presentation from the New Democratic Party. Of course, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is how the NDP continues to present Vincent and the Grenadines and do the people's job and present its response to the budget. So, without any further ado, I think we have the Honorable Terence Oliver here with us now. Terence, Happy New Year. Haven't had the chance to wish you Happy New Year, so Happy New Year to you. Welcome to the New Times program. And of course, I'm going to let you jump straight in and make your budget presentation and response here. Go right ahead.
Happy New Year to you, to Colin, and to the rest of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm really glad to be here today to present my part of the budget for 2024. I must say I give a shout out to all the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the diaspora, and I sure anybody wouldn't mind if I give a special shout out to the people of the Southern Grenadines, namely Canouan, Myro, and Union Island. I'll be concentrating mainly on Grenadines affairs and also on education, as I have always done, Colin. Now, most of us know of the economic potential of the Grenadines to the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If I could borrow a line from the Minister of Finance in his 2023 budget presentation, which he said, a great deal, and I quote, a great deal of our recovery depends on the Grenadines returning to the top as well-oiled engines of economic growth. We know in the Grenadines, known for its natural beauty, spectacular scenery, tranquility, prime sailing waters, and friendly people, the Grenadines have gained worldwide acclaim as a part of the Caribbean where people can come and feel safe. The Minister of Finance in his budget presentation 2024 stated that the future of tourism is bright in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, he went on to say that the yacht tourism is a critical part of the Grenadines economy. And that is true, because most of the people in the Grenadines depend on the tourism sector. You have the hotel and guest houses, the groceries and shops, the boat boys, the souvenir shops, the fishermen. A lot of people in the Grenadines have set about to earn their livelihood through the tourism sector. It is vital for their survival. In his 2018 budget, and I'm looking for it, the Minister of Tourism stated, and I'm looking for it so I can read, I can quote him, when he said, many have compellingly argued that St. Vincent and the Grenadines' greatest natural competitive advantage is in tourism. This lies in the yachting subsector, Now it's time to capitalize on it. And I'm asking, he said that also in 2018, if you go back to his report, that the government will do much to shed the unfortunate reputation created by some high-profile yacht crimes. Then I ask, why has St. Vincent and the Grenadines returned or regained, as the report said, the #1 position for reported crimes against yacht men and women in the Caribbean in 2023? In recognition of this fact, in the 2024 budget presentation, the minister stated that the Minister of Tourism has announced initiative to improve the safety and security of yachties in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, I went to a report, and it was published by the Caribbean Safety and Security Net, and it says that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as we had established before, is ranked #1 in the Caribbean in 2023 in relation to crimes against yachts. And I picked out a few things. For example, in Chatham Bay, a yacht which was locked, the dinghy locked and secured at Chatham Bay, but the owners slept on board. When they woke up the morning to find that the dinghy and the engine had gone. A report was made to the police station in Ashton. Right in Clifton Harbor in December, a boat was led to our non-park moorings and a high fee was demanded. They decided that they are not going to pay that fee. But what resulted after that is that they were taken to a park mooring. And during the night, they found that they were woken by unusual movement of the yacht, only to find that the rope to the moorings were cut and the dinghies were heading to a concrete concrete slab in the shore. They went to the park. They quickly, the problem was solved. But what happened? They took the yacht and they left. Theft of fuel and dinghy in another island of the Southern Grenadines. We also have the same thing happening throughout. So what is really happening? How can we, as a nation, looking at tourism as our #1 factor, was one of our #1 sector, but you have all this crime happening against yachties, which we say is so important that we have gone back to regain the #1 spot in the Caribbean. If we want tourism and the yachting sector to thrive, then we have to protect our visitors when they come to our shores. Over the holidays, I had the opportunity to interact with a number of our yachties, our yachtsmen and women. And one of the things that they were saying, they would like to see more visibility of our security patrol. They would really like to see that and to feel safe in the waters of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So that is something that this government need to look at. And I know we in the New Democratic Party, we will do our best to make sure that the visitors to our shores feel safe. Not only visitors, but our people also, that they recognize how the potential of tourism and what it has in store for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I now move to climate change. Climate change is real. And in the Southern Grenadines, we have continued the fight against climate change. The minister, in his 2024 budget address on page 23, he stated that, and I'm going to quote him, a recent feasibility study in preparation for the Georgetown Sea Defense Project indicated that over the last 40 years, seas have encroached by 180 feet along many sites on the windward coast of St. Vincent and the Grenadines due to intensifying coastal erosion and sea level rise. Similarly, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we know the case of Saltwhistle Bay that was well documented. A temporary measure was made, and it was stated that we have studies were to be done as part of our engineering work, and that the measures will be made to make sure that we have a more permanent fix to that problem at Saltwhistle Bay, Myro, where the windward Carenage Bay was encroaching into Saltwhistle Bay. I will pause here for a minute to thank the people of Myro who really sprang into action with limited tools to, and made a human cry about saving Saltwhistle Bay. And if those of us who were there always day and night at Saltwhistle Bay, it was just magnificent view. The whole area was packed with yachts. The local shops and restaurants who operate there. I told them they were glad that Saltwhistle Bay remained. Then we had Big Sand, an area in Union Island along the same coastal area where the beach, major beach, and it has gone. And I would like to highlight that waterfront Union Island is suffering from rising sea levels, and something needs to be done. I took Dr. Friday there a couple days ago so he can get a first-hand view as what is happening at waterfront Union Island, and we spoke about getting the relevant engineers to look at the area and to see how best we can help the people there, the fishermen, the local operators who from time to time, every time the sea rises, they have a very serious problem there at waterfront Union Island, and it needs to be looked at. And we in the New Democratic Party has given our pledge. We have given our pledge to those who live in that area, to those who operate in that area, that the New Democratic Party have seen your plight, and we will do what is necessary to help you fight against climate change and rising sea levels in that area. I now move on to another infrastructure dealing with roads. Now, the road revolution did not reach the Southern Grenadines. From questions that went in to from time to time during the regular parliament, it was stated that sometime in September, that this road will be fixed. I am sure that many of you would have heard me talking about the Snags, Mrs. Dolly Snag and her husband, Ralph Snag, who have since gone to the great beyond, waiting for the road over their house to be fixed. It still remains the same. The roads which were promised, those in Myro, the residents from Monroe's residence to Island Paradise. You have the road from the clinic, new refurbished clinic, to the Catholic Church. You have you also have the road going across from Patrick Ford residence up to where Auntie Jean and Rose and all of them in the back there. And I showed they would like the road to be fixed. And we were promised that from the first week in September, these roads will be fixed. You go to Union Island, you have Maurice Village Road. You have the road from Gospel Hall Church to the quarry. You have some work to be done to the main road at from Clifton to Ashton. You have the road from Mrs. Della residence to, God bless her soul, Auntie Norma's residence. All these roads need to be fixed. You go back to Canawan, you have the Friendship Village Road. You have the road from the main road, when you take from the Hard Court, pass in front of the administrative building, the National Commercial Bank, and you go down to Miss Cecilia residence there. All these roads need to be fixed, and we were promised that we will get some of the action when, it was stated last year, it's a road revolution, and sorry I have to bring it up again, but no roads, absolutely no roads in the Southern Grenadines were touched during the road revolution. And if it wasn't touched in the road revolution, when are we going to get these roads fixed? You know, there have been two issues I've been constantly dealing with when I became a representative of the Southern Grenadines since 2001. One has to deal with the port development. And I really want to take some time and deal with that now. Port development, particularly that of the Canawan issue, Canawan problem. But I must tell you the current issue. Right now, the ports in the Grenadines are relatively, they're not adequate, they're inadequate because no two ferries could dock at the same time. If one is coming down and the other one is coming up and they happen to meet in a particular port, if the other one takes 2 hours to offload, the other one has to be idle, you know, in the harbor waiting for the other one to move before it can dock. And if we are dealing with development of ports in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, how can this be? But let me go and give you some evidence. I'm going to the Hansard. As you know, and I choose to start from 2004, December 4th. And we asked the question of the main jetty at Canawan, and this is what was said. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking if they're aware that it causes a problem to the public. And this is the answer from then the Honorable Sir Vincent Beach. Then will God bless his soul. So you can see how long we have been dealing with the issue. And I'm quoting him. He said, Mr. Speaker, yes, I am aware. And this is what he said. The work would commence very soon. And this is in 2004. We even have the firm was quoted, IMS, Industrial and Marine Services, and a total amount of $251,400 was estimated to fix the wharf in Canawan. I must quote a part of the answer. He said, very soon we will start to repair this jetty in Canawan. Go on to February 28, 2005. And he said, this is the answer state that we asked the question again, the jetty in Canawan need to be fixed. It was said that Port Authority had commissioned a study and it had estimated the cost to be $251,400 to fix the wharf. They said they studied all the ports in the Grenadines. Union Island was supposed to be fixed at $198,375. And he said, again, I must quote what he said, Madam Speaker, the Port Authority knows of the importance and urgency and is working towards trying to fix this jetty, which is the jetty at Canawan. And he said the extensive work will be done there. But, you know, he said extensive work is to be done there and it will start soon. That is February 28, 2005. I move on again to October 20th, 2006. I'm documenting these things so that people can know how long we have been dealing with it. Again, the Canawan jetty. And we had a new minister. And this is what the minister said. And I want to read. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Transport and Works is unaware of any commitment by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines about this jetty. However, having brought this as a potential problem to our attention, the ministry will undertake a full conditional assessment of this jetty. Consequently, the required repairs will be programmed accordingly. This is October 20th, 2006. And what I have read before, what I read for you before, showed that the government under the minister before had stated the commitment to fixing the jetty, the name, contracting firms, the budget was given, and now this new minister said that the ministry wasn't aware of any problem at the Canawan jetty. And we went at it again, skipped some years. The other question was asked there, but I'm just picking out some years so that you can see. In February 3rd, 2009, it was stated that the Canawan jetty is scheduled to be refurbished at an estimated cost submitted by CCA Limited at $193,121.16. That was in 2009. And I move on again to October 23rd, again, 2009, where it was said the proposal has been submitted and a new facility is to be built at the cost of $2.9 million. Skip some years, as I'm trying to do in the interest of time. And it was stated that on the 4th of May, 2012, that preliminary designs are under review and at an estimated cost of $3.5 million to fix the Canawan jetty. In the interest of time, there are other years that I could state, but I'm just showing you from the year 2004, and we have dealt with it before that. Up to recently, I remember, is it sometime last year, that Dr. Friday raised the issue again, and they stated that the Canawan jetty will be fixed. But I want to say this. When you don't see it in the budget, I put one thing in mind. If it's not in the budget, will it be done? We're hearing talks that the Canawan wharf will be fixed and all of that, but will it be done? And we could go down to Myro now, and we have learned that the front of the Myro jetty is being undermined. Are you going to say you don't know anything about it? Are you going to say name a firm and contractors who will get it fixed? We have issues with the port in the Grenadines, and really there is need for the ports in the Grenadines to be fixed. We have private persons who have taken the responsibility to provide improved and much needed boat services throughout the Grenadines, and it's time for the improved services that we get the facilities that is needed to fix these jetties. From Union Island, we need more space in terms of docking. Only one ferry could dock at a time and all these problems. When you go to Canawan, the fast ferry having problems when it's low tide to dock up, and people have to be very careful how they enter and how they disembark the ferry. The other issue I have continually dealt with since I came the representative of the Southern Grenadines was education. I remember that the first time dealing with this issue, the then Chief Education Officer, Mr. Christopher Denny. I wonder how many people remember Mr. Denny being the Chief Education Officer in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He journeyed to Canawan, I believe it was 2001, and had a meeting with the people, with the residents of Canawan about secondary education on the island of Canawan. I sat in the Honorable House and was given many reasons as to why it isn't feasible to have a secondary school on the island of Canawan. And I want to quote the minister now, who is making representation to have a secondary school, I believe, at Brighton. And this is what he said. I wonder if when making the statement that he didn't remember what was said in as against putting a secondary school on the island of Canawan. He said, with school proximity and access being strong determinant of educational success, he gave that as a reason. School proximity, which is close proximity, and access being strong determinant of educational success. As for the reason for putting one of the reasons for putting a secondary school in Brighton, when we were lamenting the fact, I don't want to rehash everything of what was happening to these children of Canawan. We were given all kind of reasons. You don't have enough children for class. You don't have this. You don't have that. Now today we are boasting of the success of the Canawan Secondary School, and I would like to commend the principal and the teachers and the whole community, because we know that you can. The students could have done it. We have had people before coming out of Canawan who went at Girls High School, grammar schools, and all the top secondary schools in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. My only wish is that the present crop of students and those to come after will continue the work that was laid by the first set of students who graduated from the Canawan Secondary School. I move on now to airport rehabilitation. You know, since 2020, there have been estimates in the budget for design and to commence work on the rehabilitation of the runways throughout the Grenadines, from Beckway, that JF Mitchell Airport, to the Canawan Airport, to the Union Island Airport. From since 2020, we have had figures of $2,500,000 for 2021, and you had $5 million for 2022. The same figures were given for 2020 and $2,500,000, and you also had $500 million for 2021. And we go over to budget 2022, where you had $1,216,000. We then come back to budget 2023, where $2,016,000 were given to upgrade work on the runway in Canawan, Union Island, and Beckway. Now in 2024, I'm seeing that there's an estimate for the JF Mitchell apron and runway rehabilitation at $1,500,000. We have seen for the paving and asphalt work on the runway, apron, and car park of JF Mitchell Airport, and you also have rehabilitative work at the Union Island, JFK, and the Canawan runway to the sum of $1,546,000. I have seen that in the estimates, the project has been moved from the Ministry of Urban Development, Energy, Airport, Seaports, Grenadines Affairs, and Local Government, and it has been moved to the Office of the Prime Minister under new with a new project number. I am hoping now that from since 2020 that nothing was done, that now it has been moved under the Prime Minister's office, that work will be done at these airports. We are talking about tourism being vital. I know a number of persons who are some people come from Barbados to Union Island, Canawan, Beckway. These airports are very important to quite a number of people who are coming to and from, who are coming to the Southern Grenadines for the holidays. At one point in time, Union Island was known as the busiest airport in the Windward Islands, or should I say in the Southern Caribbean, because people playing from Martinique and higher up in the OECS and the Southern Caribbean, always busy as ever. Now it is a shadow of itself. So let's hope with this project being moved from the Ministry of Urban Development, Seaports, Airports, and is now under the Prime Minister's office, we're going to see some meaningful action in order to pave these airports. I now move to education. Construction of a TVET center in Union Island to the cost of $1 million in 2024 and an estimated cost of $1,793,000. I'm really thankful that efforts are being made to improve the condition of TVET students in Union Island, and I'll go on for them to say more. in terms of technical drawing and building technology. At the end of the last academic school year, I visited the TVEC area, which has been housed at the former secondary school in Union Island. And I will tell you that the conditions were woefully inadequate. It was totally deplorable. Before you enter into the building, you had to play hopscotch to try to get over the droppings that were left by the animals, sheep and goats and those things. And you could imagine the stench. When you enter the building, you then had to deal with cracked floors, that the flooring of the place cracked up all over. Walls cracked, wood lice, broken down windows. And so this is the area in which this government, who is now talking about debt, in which students and teachers had to operate, brought the issue to the parliament. Remember, it was coming to the third term in the academic school year. The minister said that he gave the assurance that the area will be repaired for the beginning of the new academic school year. And it wasn't done. So what happened? We're now talking about building a TVEC center in Union Island. Yet the place where they were learning TVEC, which wasn't adequate, you didn't see it feasible to repair the building which you said would house TVEC. And yeah, it was moved to the new location, to the new campus, to a place where they're now doing it. It is inadequate. So much so, they lack proper tools, they lack proper furniture, which is not adequate. And because of that, the teachers are finding it difficult, teachers and students are finding it difficult to learn in the environments which they are now given. And I was reliably informed that in the area of building technology, that it cannot be done. And they're having difficulty in doing the technical drawing aspect of it. This is a government which is now saying they pride themselves on promoting or doing technical education as an important component of our education system. We in the New Democratic Party have always been championing the inclusion of TVET, of skills, or should I say TVET, technical vocational education, in making a part of the curriculum. We recognize the fact that you have to create multiple pathways of success for the varied ability students who are at our schools. We must do that. And when we talk about TVET, we are not talking about only the subject which we are accustomed to, like as I say, technical drawing and building technology. But we are talking about masonry, plumbing, welding, electrical installation, secretarial skills, cabinet making, garment construction. And this is why we keep on talking about CVQs and making sure that our curriculum is so equipped that it caters to the students of our all secondary schools. And this is what it said it should be done. Schools must be suitably equipped to offer level 1 and 2 at the secondary level. And it said, preparation in schools requires the collaboration of the Ministry of Education or the ministry agency responsible for industrial training and CXC. So the Ministry of Education must collaborate with CXC. It says the Ministry of Education has the responsibility for translating the approved standard in appropriate curriculum, equipping the schools with the required resources and training teachers for delivery of programs in secondary schools. I want to ask the question. We have been talking about dropouts all the time. I have had figures, I was looking at figures over the years, in some instances, some years where you have 257 students, 211, 278, this and that. And when Dr. Friday said at least 1/3 of the students drop out, the minister the government want to react. Where are these students? Where are they? And what are they doing? Everybody should be given the opportunity to finish secondary school. And in instituting a program of TVET in secondary schools would give everybody the opportunity to learn something within the interest. This magazine is called the Caribbean Examiner, and it is published by CHC. This is the 215 publication, and it was done in October. And I have since that time been using this magazine to say to the government, this is what is being accomplished by other students in other Caribbean territories where they, in terms of agriculture and other skills learned at secondary schools, where they gain the CVQs, and after that, they're able to gain employment where they were attached for training. So much so, some of them have entered the job place in a supervisory position because of the CVQ qualification and the CVQ certification which they have gained. And we have been saying all along that we need to reorganize, re-engineer our education sector in order to cater to our needs. We have said that continually. We in the New Democratic Party have been championing this cause and stating that the program must be linked to on-the-job training, so much so that where these children entered for training, I heard the minister boasting about OSV and and it is very good to see. But we have been saying that for a long time when the New Democratic Party and been pushing for TVET and improve and for more skills to be done at the secondary level, giving all of our students the chance that they need, because the same way how we treat the academics, TVET must be given the same treatment. TVET must be given the same treatment as we treat academics within our schools. We must recognize that a child without education, whether it be academics or skills, is like a bird without wings. A child without education, whether it be academic and skills, is like a bird without wings. And we have always said, why can't a child leave school with 10 subjects, with a secondary school, with 10 subjects and 2 skills, two TVET skills? Why can't they do that? It is very important, because I myself, I wish I had the opportunity to learn a skill. I would have been better off today. And I am encouraging any young person to get involved and to learn a skill. And I am hoping, and we in this New Democratic Party, as I said, will make sure that everyone is given that opportunity to finish their secondary education, and where they can learn 1 or 2 skills at level 1 and 2 at the secondary level, not when they drop out or when some leave schools. Of course, you can have the program for people who are out of school presently, who did not get that opportunity to do so in order to improve their employability. But right now, we need to make sure that the students at secondary school have that education, because we must recognize that secondary education is the cornerstone of any education system. And we have to make sure that our children benefit from the education we are providing for them. Next, I want to deal with health. The people of the Grenadines have always seemed to be at a disadvantage when it comes to access to healthcare, especially in times of emergency. It is a very difficult situation sometimes we face in order to try to access healthcare because in terms of times of emergency, when we have to travel from the Grenadines to mainland St. Vincent. A Medivac was purchased, and it was said that this Medivac would be available in times of emergency in order to help with the situation. The Medivac, I understand, is stationed now at the Calico Coast Guard base. But in the meantime, in terms of emergency, we use a very small Coast Guard which is stationed at Canoa. And I've had complaints from medical personnel and patients who use this Coast Guard to come to St. Vincent in times of emergency, that it is very uncomfortable and it is difficult. Of course, I applaud the Coast Guard personnel from time to time, whether it's in the night, in the day. Sometimes you look at the sea condition, they cannot come, but they try their best to offer this vital service to people within the Grenadines, and we must applaud them. But better can be done. The minister, in answering a question as to why the Medivac is not available, he stated that 69 medical evacuation were done in the Grenadines in 2023, 40 from Union Island and 29 from Bequia. Of course, I know of a few who traveling on the Coast Guard did not make it to mainland St. Vincent. Yes, the body make it, the body itself, but they themselves did not make it. They died on the way. And there must be an adequate way in order to transport people from the Grenadines to mainland St. Vincent. Sometimes I hear the talk of helicopter and helipad, and you I mean to say you go on, you bought a boat, you didn't realize that it wasn't adequate for the purpose for which you buy it. The Coast Guard base, the patients have to be lying on the put them on a stretcher, and they're basically on the floor of the boat. Come on, what you think you're transporting is people you are dealing with, and better must be done for the people of the Southern Grenadines and the Grenadines on the whole. We demand better, we deserve better. You can't be treating us like this. The part of the island which you say is vital to the economic growth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and this is how you are treating us medically? No, man, come on. It's sometimes you know, when you look at the condition in which we have to suffer to get healthcare, and especially in cases of emergency, you wonder what is happening. And as I've said, because of the means, I'm not a doctor, but I feel sometimes this contribute to some people kicking out before they reach on the mainland, and better must be done for our people. We need adequate, decent, and acceptable transportation when it comes to medical emergency and something better must be done. Last year budget, continuing on the area of health, we heard about a laboratory service which was coming to 4 district. One of it was in Union Island. And I was glad for that because I had called for it before. And the minister assured that in the early part of 2023, it will be available. So this was made in 2022, I believe. But here what? The laboratory was set up, but it is not operational. So you still have to pull blood and send it to mainland St. Vincent and then wait for it to come back. When you are dealing with people and they need to know this information on a timely basis, a quick basis, why all these shenanigans? Why can't we if you put the proper structure in place, why isn't it operational? Why we, the people in the Southern Grenadines, always have to be I wouldn't use this statement, but there's a statement that sometimes we use, which part of the stick you hold. And we don't want to be holding that part of the stick all the time. We deserve better. Our young men in the Grenadines continue to suffer from depression illness. In 2023 was an eventful year. I know of, a couple of persons. I know of a person who got ill, when we say got the bends. And the negotiation between them and Grenada and all the up and down and then when that happened, you want to get to a chamber as quickly as possible. So I am asking, we have heard about a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. What is the status of this project? I am asking indeed, because most of the young men in the Grenadines, they earn their livelihood through diving. They use these tanks on a regular basis, and it is time that that instead of have to travel overseas for such treatment, that we need to have it. We said we were setting it up. I haven't heard anything about it, and I'm asking, please, that something be done to alleviate the plight of the young men in the Grenadines who, from time to time, they depend on diving and they use these tanks. Nobody goes about to deliberately give themselves bends. But when accidents happen, something they must be there. It must be there to cater to them. In the island, we have always had problems with water. And we have heard the talk about desalination plant. As a matter of fact, I have spoken to Mr. Cummins, Mr. Daniel Cummins, and I said, Mr. Cummins, what is the problem? Why can't desalination plant be set up in these islands? Canawan, I know there's a plant used by the developers there, and they have from time to time people can get water, but sometimes the services take a little longer than it should. In Yunnan Island, we don't have any. In times of drought, we suffer immensely. I mean, sometimes I call on people to say, if you have a tap, remember your neighbor. They don't have water, at least a bucket from time to time, a drum from time to time. See what you can do. But we need desalination plants in this island. And not Myro, there's a private person who has a small desal plant, and he uses it to service his business from time to time. I think he also uses it to give water to islanders from time to time when things get real bad. It's time that we really look at the Grenadines and do something to help the people of the Grenadines. We are away from the main administrative center. Sometimes things are really, really, really difficult. There are lots of other issues that I want to deal with, but in the interest of time, and I know the program is going to close shortly, so the other issues we'll have to deal with it another time. I promise you, Colin, that from time to time I will come on the program and even establish some of these points which I have made here, and there are others which need to be discussed and to show the lives of the people of the Grenadines. It seems as if, sometimes you don't want to say it, it is as if we are going backwards. It is as if we are going backwards. When you look at our airport and facilities, and as we have said, from time to time, the services which are being offered there in some of our airports are inadequate. Why is it that Grenadines people have to suffer so when you have a particular government in service? We need to do better. The Grenadines have made its fair share of contribution to the economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And as a matter of fact, quoting the ministers, following the ministers when he said the recovery of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is dependent on the Grenadines returning to the level of well-oiled engines. You can't be treating your engine so. You can't be treating the people of the Grenadines in this aspect, in that way. And from that, I would rest now and will be rejoined by my honorable colleague, Fitzgerald Bramble, and we will take questions from those who are listening and from those who are listening. Colin.
All right. So again, I want to thank both of you gentlemen for the contributions being made here today. That was the presentations by the members of the New Democratic Party elected representative for the Southern Grenadines, the Honorable Terence Oliver, and before him was the Honorable Dwight Fitzgerald Bramble, who made his presentation as well on the budget. Gentlemen, again, thank you very much for coming to the people and presenting your side of the budget here, and of course a response to the ULP's budget. Like I asked everybody who had the chance here, how does it feel having to come on this medium and this platform and presenting a response to the budget and not doing it in the House of Parliament because the ULP administration decided to run off practically on the budget presentation?
Well, Colin, I think it's a demonstration and a reinforcement of the point we made about lack of accountability and transparency. You know, and this is something that all the international agencies, or I mean, any entity that you can think about, they tell you one of the pillars of good governance is accountability, and another is transparency. And you know, people can argue and justify all they want about what happened. The fact of the matter is that this government failed to account to the people of this country about the money that they're spending, and we can't accept that. In 2024, we should have gone past that. We just cannot. It's just absolutely unacceptable, and we have to continue to keep applying the pressure, so that if this government is not prepared to be accountable and transparent, then we know we have to get them out of the way.
Well, Colin, I would say we keep on hearing about the people's budget. It's a people's budget, and really, the people want to hear what is in the budget, and people like to listen to Parliament around budget time to hear what the minister has to present, to hear what the opposition has to say about the budget. And when you deny the people that right, what are you saying to the people? How can it be a people's budget when what is in the budget has not been ventilated fully, and then you have to come to this medium to try to give the people a response, and you haven't really heard what the respective ministers have said or would have said, then you really don't know how to respond based only on what the Minister of Finance would have said. But I am sure the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they're happy for us using this medium to give certain information to them, but would have liked it to be a more wholesome debate.
All right, gentlemen, are you satisfied? I'm pretty certain you've also had the opportunity to hear the responses from the other members of the New Democratic Party. Are you satisfied that the people are sorely disappointed with the ULP and are happy with the direction that the NDP has taken?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, as you know, Rita Marley has the song, "Who feels it knows it." And you know, the ministers of government, the prime minister, they can come and sugarcoat, you know, and of course the agents, they can sugarcoat as much as they want. The reality is that people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines are experiencing dire socio-economic realities, much worse than when this current administration came into office. And let's be realistic. I'm not saying that, you know, everything that they've done is bad to use that term or not good. But the reality is that our people, the socioeconomic situation that we are facing is totally unacceptable. It's not anything that I would wish on anybody else.
Right.
And that might sound extreme, but that's just my view. And I am of the view that the presentations made by my colleagues, by my leader, Dr. Friday, and all of my colleagues clearly indicate a very distinct understanding and approach to socio-economic development and to improving the lives of our people between the New Democratic Party, which obviously and clearly is a people-centered understanding and approach, as opposed to the draconian, irrelevant, and out-of-touch approach by Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and his administration. And I'm not just saying this, the evidence is there. I have presented many instances, examples, much data, much evidence, and so have my colleagues as well. So it's not like we come in here and playing politics, you know.
Well, Colin, I would say it shows definitely who is more in touch with the people, listening to the people, adhering to talking to people every day, adhering to what they have to say. Or is it because also maybe they run because look, when you look at some of the evidence we presented, you will see from time to time the government has several issues in the estimates, and from a year ago, 2019 is the same, 2020 is the same, 2021 is the same, 2022 is the same, 23, and now 24. Some of the same issues which is said. You see, I have read even from 2012, 2008, 2007, when they said the work will be done shortly. The work would commence soon. And what is soon? Because we are now in 2024, and some of these things were supposed to be done since 2004, 2003, still soon.
But Colin,
go ahead.
I could quickly say as well to her. I mean, it's I wrote the Minister of Finance back in August last year, requesting, because of how the budget process is, they exclude us, they don't involve us in anything. So I took the initiative to write him and to request certain projects and so on in East Kingston. And the gentleman didn't even have the decency to respond to my letter. He gets up in Parliament when we debated the estimates and said, oh, he acknowledged receipt of my email. But he did not respond to my letter. I asked for several things in East Kingston, like equipping and outfitting the Rockies Community Center, putting toilet and change facilities down at the Sign Hill Beach, putting a bus stop in Murray Village, Rockies, Roseau, and Walville, putting covering the drain going down the Roseau main road so that you can have ease of pedestrian movement, given the increase in traffic, because it's used as an alternate route during rush hours and so on. And those are simple things. Those are simple things in the bigger scheme of things. But these guys, they are so selfish and so self-centered and so disconnected from the people. Which Minister of Finance would go and brag about this budget being an East St. George budget? I mean, that just tells you that just puts the icing on the cake.
All right.
With regards to the selfishness of these people and how ostracized they have made our people become.
All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time, but go ahead, Terence.
Let's look, for example. You and I, over the years, have been talking time and time again about the re-engineering of the education system to meet the needs of our people.
Indeed.
We put forward the issue of TVET, of skills and skills training, link it to on-the-job training to give our people, to give our students a fighting edge. And that this must be done at the secondary level. And if we do that at the secondary level, Colin, it will help to curb the dropout rates in schools. But what has been done? Nothing. They fight against us with it. But now, you see, they try to make TVET their mantra in trying to say, this is what they have been doing, they have proposed all along when we have asked several questions and pointing this government to the need for skills being implemented in schools. So our young people would have the opportunity to stay in school, to have that fighting chance of staying in school. And then we talk about long life learning. Those who are out of school would also get the opportunity to improve their skills. Why is it? Sometimes I look, for example, at the island of Canavan, and you have people coming from all over the world, and they have this little certificate which says they have such and such skill. But our people are left to do the menial jobs because we haven't embarked on a system then when we were trying to push this government to do it in order to provide skills training within our schools and for those who are out of schools, and to make sure it is linked to on-the-job training and certification, so our people would have the opportunity to apply for these jobs, compete for these jobs with people who are coming into the country.
All right, gentlemen, final points, final takeaway you would like for our listeners to have as we wrap up on the program here today?
Well, if I could go first, because I am the junior in terms of parliament.
Senior member looking at you serious over there.
But Colin, I think it is clear that this administration is desperate. As I pointed out in my presentation, they really don't have a plan. The one plan that could have guided them and helped them to at least bring some semblance of economic decency to this country, they totally ignored. That's the National Social and Economic Development Plan 2013 to 2025. They totally ignored it. I presented the evidence. So what my conclusion is that the people of this country have got to realize, and we in the New Democratic Party, we have got to take the lead, and we have got to continue, to lead on that, and to continue to encourage and support and build the confidence of the people of this country that the only way, and I'm saying this without any water in my mouth, the only way this country is going to move to any semblance of economic decency and a decent quality of life for people is to get rid of this Unity Labour Party administration and put the New Democratic Party into government so that we can demonstrate to you, we can put action to our words. That is what I would encourage the people of this country, the people of East Kingston to do. And I'm just encouraging and humbly asking for you to continue to rally around us. Let us do this thing together so that we can take St. Vincent and the Grenadines forward together.
All right, Terence, home for us.
Colin, I would just simply state that the ULP is the bankrupt of ideas, and don't care who you bring in, they have been there for so long that they don't know what to do again. It's time for a change. It's time to bring a new government to St. Vincent and the Grenadines so that the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines can move forward with new ideas. I always said we have been in the wilderness. We have been tested and tried, and we are ready to take St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the next level.
All right, gentlemen, again, thank you so very much for your wonderful presentation and response to the budget here on the New Times program. Thank you very much to both of you. And that is where we're going to come to the end of another edition of the New Times program today here on, of course, Nice Radio. You also were viewing live on social media, the New Democratic Party's platform, of course, Facebook and YouTube. We thank you so very much for viewing. Remember to like and share and continue to listen to the New Times program and follow the New Democratic Party on its social media platforms to be informed and up to date onto what is happening with the New Democratic Party and its plans and policies for the way forward here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. My name is Colin Graham. Thank you so very much for listening. Thank you so very much for viewing. And of course, we encourage you to join us again tomorrow on another edition of the New Times program.